Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Birds. Today, we are talking about 5 sleepers I am taking at the end of your fantasy football drafts. I'm talking about guys past pick 100 average draft position in your drafts. Last year, we hit on guys like Nico Collins, Rashad White, and James Cook. This year, we're looking to hit on some late round sleepers yet again. Let's not waste your time, but let's hop right into my 5 sleepers for fantasy football 2024. The first sleeper I want to talk about today is Javonte Williams for the Denver Broncos. Now, Williams' ADP is outside the top 100, like we talked about, right around pick 111 for your redraft leagues, according to Fantasy Pros. A lot of people might shy away from Javonte, saying he's in a 3-man committee on a bad offense in Denver. While the offense isn't great for the Broncos, I don't think there's as much competition as some people might want you to believe. Samaje Perine, he's 29 years old. He really doesn't have much of a role in that backfield outside of maybe pass catching downs. And still, at 29 years old, I don't expect much out of Perine, second year for this team. And then other people are going to point towards Jaleel McLaughlin, second-year player, a quick, agile, smaller back. But surprisingly enough, McLaughlin was under 33% snap share every single game of last year outside of one game. So majority of the time, McLaughlin's playing a very small role on this team. Not only that, Javonte Williams had more than double the amount of carries of McLaughlin and Perine combined. So he has a stranglehold on these carries for this team. Might I remind you, this is 1 year after Javonte basically blew up his entire knee. So if he's dominating carries, just 1 year removed from that injury, 2 years removed, healthy offseason, he should be good to go as the lead back in Denver for Sean Payton. Let's not forget, Javonte Williams 2 years ago had a top 10 elusive rating in the National Football League. Very good at breaking tackles. And we saw that this year on a smaller scale, albeit coming off that injury, still top 24 in elusive rating for running backs and number 9 in breakaway runs. All statistics show 2 years removed after devastating knee injuries are where running backs really start to get back to where they were prior to dealing with that. So 2 years removed under Sean Payton in his offense. We know Sean Payton's known for getting running backs the football and running his offense through them. We saw in New Orleans, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara for so many years aided the end of Drew Brees' career. And with some shaky quarterback play in Denver projected with Zach Wilson or Bo Nix, who's the starting quarterback there, I think they're going to lean on this running back, who last year, surprising enough, was top 10 in red zone touches. Javonte Williams was in Denver for an offense that wasn't that great. So still, being able to eclipse a top 10 mark in red zone touches, where we want to be prioritizing our touches in fantasy football, scoring touchdowns, Javonte top 10 in that category, leads me to believe he has a very good chance to dominate this backfield. Yes, he's going to get spilled by McLaughlin every once in a while, but 29-year-old Perine does not concern me. Getting this guy after pick 100, ADP 111, I am more than happy to draft Javonte Williams as an RB2 or even flex play and feel confident I'm getting double-digit fantasy points more than likely each and every time he steps on the field. Not to mention, the Broncos have the 10th easiest strength of schedule for running backs, going up against some pretty weak run defenses in 2024. Look for Javonte to take advantage of that for the Broncos. Next guy I want to talk about is Josh Palmer. He's going to be the most expensive guy on this list today, ranked number 100 ADP according to Fantasy Pros. I talked about Ladd McConkey as a potential breakout player on last week's video. Now I'm talking about Josh Palmer, a sleeper, because you can get him a couple rounds behind McConkey. Basically, I'll reiterate what I said for McConkey. This Chargers receiving corps was decimated in the offseason. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, no Austin Eckler from the running back position we know does a lot of his damage through the air. 395 targets, just right around 400 vacated targets this Chargers offense is losing. With a quarterback like Justin Herbert, somebody's going to catch the ball if he stays healthy, especially with Harbaugh coming in as head coach, fortifying that offensive line. A good offensive line with a good quarterback. There's going to be a profitable wide receiver in this offense, so getting Palmer a chance at that at pick 100, I think is a great value. Palmer last year in 3 games without Keenan Allen, averaging 70 receiving yards, 5 catches, 7 targets, and 70 receiving yards. So Palmer has shown the ability to step up when Keenan is out of the lineup. And Palmer was quietly having a pretty solid year with the injuries to Mike Williams early in the season with his ACL and Keenan Allen later in the season. He did fight through some injuries himself, which limited his fantasy value last year. But if he's able to stay healthy, why not take shots on these Chargers receivers if you're getting them so cheap with a great young quarterback and a great offensive line and a projected great offense for the Los Angeles Chargers behind Justin Herbert, especially when Josh Palmer, only 24 years old, still growing in this league, when his only competition is going to be an incoming rookie and Quentin Johnston, who looked horrible last year in his rookie season when giving a very significant role with all these injuries we've talked about. I see no problem with taking the 24-year-old Palmer for the Chargers. Next guy I'm going to talk about is Michael Wilson, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Nothing jumping off the page here. Obviously, Cardinals go out and get Marvin Harrison with the number 4 pick in the 2024 draft. But why can't a wide receiver 2 in this Kyler Murray-led offense bring us some pretty solid fantasy value? Last year, Wilson's numbers weren't that bad. Through 8 healthy weeks, he was averaging 50 receiving yards, and this is with some bum quarterback play like Josh Dobbs. Now, Dobbs did have some pretty solid games, but we saw him benched late in the year for some pretty horrible decisions. And that's kind of backed up with Michael Wilson. He was number 97 wide receiver from target accuracy perspective. So the ball's being thrown his way, not very accurate, not very catchable, but still able to put up 50 receiving yards for the first 8 games of your NFL career. Pretty impressive. Going in drafts around ADP pick 169. Pretty nice value there if you ask me. It's not like Michael Wilson came out of nowhere. He is a 3rd round wide receiver from Stanford, so he definitely does have some ability. The Cardinals do bring in Zay Jones on the outside, but Zay Jones might just be cooked at this point. We saw in Jacksonville his numbers last year, not very promising. He also dealt with some injuries, albeit, but Zay Jones, even when on the field, he's still outside the top 80 wide receivers in yards per route run and target separation. So he's not very efficient with his routes, and he's not getting open. So I don't really want the Cardinals bringing in Zay Jones to have us overlook what Michael Wilson was able to do as a rookie, which is put up some pretty consistent and solid numbers in Arizona when the quarterback play wasn't always the best there. Now, while Zay Jones was outside the top 80 in those categories, Michael Wilson was top 60 in both of those, yards per route run and target separation. So he's shown the ability to create some space for the quarterback to throw him the football, and we know how important the yards per route run statistic is. So even being marginally better than what Zay Jones is as a rookie gives me a reason to think he could put up some numbers with a healthy Kyler Murray and maybe Marvin Harrison diverting some of the defensive attention towards that side. I think him and Trey McBride still could have very favorable fantasy matchups and favorable fantasy numbers this upcoming year. Especially in the brief stint we saw Wilson with Kyler Murray. Grabs 5 catches, averages right around 65 yards, and grabs a touchdown in one of those final 2 games with Murray. So they do have some sort of a relationship. They built a little bit of chemistry last season. I think they can bring that into 2024, and he can provide some decent wide receiver 2 numbers for the Cardinals. At average draft position 169, you don't really need much for him to provide value at that selection. Next guy I want to talk about, Rashid Shaheed for the New Orleans Saints. Early in his career, really just a special teams guy and a field-stretching wide receiver. We saw that last year in New Orleans. He started to get more involved in the offense. He's top 15 in air yards and average depth of target, which is becoming a very important statistic in fantasy football. So while the targets aren't plentiful for Shaheed, when the targets do come, they are very effective. We know Derek Carr is a long ball quarterback. We saw it in Oakland relying on those deep passes to open up the football field. While people do want to clown on Derek Carr, last year he quietly had a top 15 year at the quarterback position across most categories. And this wide receiver core in New Orleans does look pretty depleted with the absence of Michael Thomas. Hasn't really been on the field the last 3 years, but did play a decent amount in the beginning of the year in 2023. He's no longer in town. Chris Olave's obviously your number 1, but somebody has to step up alongside Olave for this New Orleans team who is projected to be down in a number of games this year. So why can't Shaheed be that guy? Only other guys really there, A.T. Perry. Some people want to be bumping him up. But Shaheed, we saw his snap share be pretty consistent in 2023, right around between 60 and 70% snap share a majority of the time. And with Michael Thomas gone, I think Shaheed could factor in more into this offense. And especially with some of these new special teams rules, he could be a factor on kick returns as well. But with the absence of Michael Thomas, with Juwan Johnson, their main receiving threat at the tight end position, he's also having surgery this offseason, so we don't know how healthy he's going to be in the beginning of the year. These are 2 of your top 3 pass catchers coming into the year last season, potentially missing from this offense. With an aging Alvin Kamara out the backfield, I think Shaheed steps into a much larger role in New Orleans. Coming into second year under Derek Carr, maybe some more continuity with this offense. They bring in a new offensive coordinator from San Francisco. We know how San Francisco likes to get their playmakers the ball. I think Shaheed is one of your best playmakers on offense, and I expect him to play a much bigger role for the New Orleans Saints in 2024. At number 5, I have Trey Benson, the rookie running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Going back to this Cardinals team, Benson, a 3rd-round pick out of Florida State. The numbers don't jump off the table from his collegiate career, but he does managed to get 14 touchdowns in his last season for the Seminoles. Florida State was always a little wary using Benson. He does come off a huge injury, suffered at the University of Oregon, a horrible knee injury he's been recovering from for the past 2 seasons. So they didn't give him a huge workload at Florida State, but he's a big, talented running back coming into this Arizona offense. We know they need to protect Kyler Murray. He suffered a significant amount of injuries through his short NFL career. While James Conner is the running back 1 heading into the season, we don't know how long that's going to last. Conner has missed at least 2 games in every single year of his NFL career. Last year, he misses 4. The year before that, he also misses 4 games. So it's really not a matter of if James Conner misses time, it's when he misses and for how long. And I think Trey Benson has the ability to step into that role in Arizona. Somewhat of fresh legs with not a huge workload in college. And this Cardinals team, we know they like to run the ball. Last year, how bad their season was. They were trailing in a number of their games. They were still top 13 in rush attempts while being down in almost every game. So if they want to run the ball as much as they did last year, James Conner at 29 years old and the injury history he possesses is not going to be able to do it on his own. I think Trey Benson factors into this backfield for the Cardinals. And at this point in the offseason is one of my favorite sleepers alongside Kyler Murray, trying to keep him healthy in the red zone especially. They sub in backup quarterbacks to do the QB sneak. Why not hand it to a young, talented running back out of Florida State and Trey Benson to get the job done? I like the value with this talented rookie running back behind an older, injury-prone veteran running back. Those are my 5 sleepers for Fantasy Football 2024. Let me know what you think of these 5 guys. Started out with Javonte Williams and finished up with Josh Palmer, Michael Wilson, Rashid Shaheed, and Trey Benson. Let me know what you think of these 5 guys. What sleepers do you have heading into 2024 Fantasy Football? Let me know in the comment section. Drop any questions you might have. Love talking fantasy with you guys. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more fantasy football content. We're going to keep pumping it out heading up into the start of the 2024 season. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.